When I was at Arizona State University in undergraduate school in sculpture, my first assignment was to take something that had been assembled, take it apart, use the parts, and reassemble it and use color. That was part of the assignment. So from the very first sculpture I ever made, I used color. Then the next assignment that my teacher just said, now you have to make your own parts, and I just continued with and used color. And I always painted all my sculptures. And I had come out of model cars, and so I knew how to paint and apply color and stuff like that. And so it was very natural for me to paint a piece of sculpture. I moved here, and all the sculptures were using aluminum in those days, and the reason for that was we had a source for aluminum. Eddie Bergman, who is one of the founders of the Museum of Contemporary Art here in Chicago, owned an aluminum recycling or scrap yard, and we could go there and pick up scrap and metal for free, and he got lots of different kinds of stuff. Sometimes he got brand new plate. He would get plate when Boeing was finished with a series of airplanes. They would have to clear the shop of all inventory, and all of a sudden you'd open up a boxcar and it'd be full of brand new plate. So I learned from other artists, namely Steve Urey and John Henry, how to weld aluminum and work with it. And for me now, it has become such an interesting material because unlike bronze and unlike wood, which have such a connection to the earth, aluminum is a man-made material. It has no memory, it has no connection. It's very common, and therefore I can manipulate it any way I want. I seldom know how I'm going to paint a piece of sculpture until I actually built the model, the piece of sculpture, whether it's a model or a large, a unique piece. The color tends to come with the form after I've built it. And the form is developed from a certain vocabulary or shapes that I've used and developed over the years. So color is very difficult to speak about because it doesn't, I don't have a preconceived idea. Now sometimes I'll be in a certain kind of mood and I'll do certain pieces that, that are more blue or some that are more green, a little brighter or kind of gardeny colors and stuff. So it depends on that kind of thing, or the setting they're going into has a lot to do with the color. I do like vertical pieces, and the human form is vertical. So I think that's the connection that's made most of all. And I do find that as a piece of sculpture comes into, as I'm building it, and it actually takes on a life of itself. Peart-Alpha in 1992 was designed and commissioned by the students of Oakton Community College. And I have always had a connection with Oakton because in the early 70s, when I first got here, I taught 1/3 of one class for, I think it was 3 semesters. Peart-Alpha, I felt was a good idea for being in school. I always liked the idea. You're in school and then you're out of school. It's a phase of your life. And so there's a certain celebratory aspect as well to it. Falling Meteor was my first large-scale piece. It is one color because I only had enough money for one color. I have some sketches of how it was to be painted if it was to be multicolored. And literally it was, I built the piece, I borrowed money to build a piece of sculpture. And this was in 1975, and this is before the day when they would mail you credit cards and stuff like that. I had to really use all my resources to build that sculpture. Blue Geisha came just before, the year before Splash. It was commissioned by Miglin and Beitler Real Estate Development. And it was, at the time, was my largest piece. It's 4 stories high. And was also largest in budget. It was in the early 80s, 1983, 84, and it really was one of those pivotal pieces for me. I really stretched on it. I got to know what I could do and realized that I could do just about anything I could think of. Morning Breeze was commissioned by the Fine Arts Museum of Canton, Ohio. They came to my studio on a tour 13 years earlier. We went ahead a couple of years ago and I built a model. They liked what they saw, and so we went to contract, and I just completed it. It's 26 feet high, 28 feet across, and it sits in front of the museum. One of the problems with the museum was you couldn't find the front door. You didn't know where to enter this building. And what the sculpture does is it really does demarcate where the entrance to the museum is. This is the model for Splash. The finished sculpture is 20 feet high, and the model is 20 inches by 32 inches. And so it's an exact 1-inch scale model, 1 inch to a foot between the model and the full-size sculpture. These are very accurate models so that they can be presented to art selection committees and such, so they know exactly what they're going to get. This is sitting on Michigan Avenue. It was a wonderful site. It has 3 major approaches plus a vehicular view from the street. And so it really is a tremendous site because you could see it from so many different ways. The title doesn't really do it justice but it's a great handle. All the titles are mostly handles because an abstract idea is difficult to deal with anyway, so you have to give it a handle. And it's very much like music. Different pieces of music are very abstract, and they have titles and such. And I think musicians have a common thing in the way titling abstract things.